Hello everybody, thank you for joining me today. I do truly appreciate it, and I'm crippled and I've got help. So I had shoulder surgery yesterday and I still haven't been able to take the bandages off. I'm not supposed to move my arm or anything like that, so I'm hobbled, used to being capable and able to do things. So I had to ask for help. I brought my son Carter in to the book room today to help open up some boxes for me because the friendly neighborhood mail lady has delivered, and I've got some news and some cool things coming up, and I want to show you a few packages that came in the mail that will be useful for an upcoming book convention. I like them things. I don't know about you, but I like conventions, period. It could be a dinosaur convention, a Bigfoot convention, a homeschool convention, a book convention, a reptile convention. Anything you want to invite me to, I dig it. I love venues full of crap and people wandering around and people talking. I don't know. I find that stuff entertaining. But when it comes to book conventions, I like it even more because I like books and I like conventions. So it really works out. But there's a book convention coming up in December, on December the 6th in Dayton, Tennessee. Specifically, 1336 Market Street in Dayton, Tennessee on December the 6th. And it's called JEFCON 1. You know, DEFCON and Jeff Terry from the Jeff word, jeffing off. Go Jeff your shelf. And JEFCON 1 are going to be in Dayton at 1336 Market Street at what is described as a very cool venue. And there are also going to be some special guests who are special to me, besides Jeff Terry from the Jeff word. Some special guests, other people from the book community, people who I've talked to for years in some cases on Facebook and such as that. But authors, some of my favorite authors walking God's green earth will be at JEFCON 1. Philip Fracassi, Kealan Patrick Burke, Tyler Jone, to name a few off the top of my head, will be confirmed to be there. There will be a publisher's, I forgot what it's called, publisher's Zoom kind of a thing, where you'll be able to ask questions on a Zoom or a Google Meets or something like that. The publishers like Paul Miller at Earthling Publications and others. I don't have all the details. Talk to Jeff Terry. It says con. But I'll be there. I got a couple tickets. Me and Carter here will be there. I had to pay for his freight, so hopefully he'll go with me. But other cool things like Rapture Publishing and Mitch Hull, one of my favorite people on God's green earth, will also be there. And there's others that I'm not thinking about off the top of my head. And I'll be there if that matters to anybody besides me, because I'm going there because I like stuff like that. But lots of stuff going on that date, and I'm looking forward to meeting some cool things. Now, I'm going to need some help because I did get some stuff in the mailbox. The friendly neighborhood mail ladies hooked a brother up from a couple different locations, and I've got stuff on the shelf already to take with me, and some stuff that hasn't arrived yet that I also will want to take with me. But there's a couple things in the mail and a couple things that I just opened up the other day that I want to take and get signed. And the first one of my son Carter here is going to have to help me out. Can you open this one for me? Directly, where's it from? Thanks, sorry. Take it right out of your hand. Directly from Waterstones.com in the United Kingdom. It's a bookstore that also gets stuff specially published for them, sometimes signed editions and different things, but also sometimes UK editions, stuff that we just can't buy here in the United States, different versions of books. And so this one, Philip Fracassi, one of my favorite authors who ever lived, and what I am now comfortable and confident in saying is my favorite book that Philip Fracassi has written so far, or that I've read of Philip Fracassi so far. And this one is just out, just published. I think last week was publishing date. This one took a little while, and I wasn't even here when it arrived. I was in Hawaii when it showed up, I think. And that is the Autumn Springs Retirement Home Massacre. And I've done a book review on this because I was able to get a digital ARC from NetGalley, and I read it and I loved it. And sometimes I gotta let things digest a little bit. So at the time it was kind of, man, this might be my favorite. I don't know. I really love A Child Alone with Strangers. I really loved Boys in the Valley. Of Gothic. I think A Child Alone with Strangers was probably my favorite at that point. But a little bit of digesting, and now I feel like this is my favorite Fracassi book. And it's a neat twist on a horror slasher genre, and one that feels fun in cases and feels very serious and deep in other cases. There is a lady on here, and this is not a book review, a lady named Rose Dubois, who is in a retirement home, an assisted living facility called Autumn Springs Retirement Home. And she's there because she chooses to be. She doesn't want to be a burden to her family. She has options, but she's there because she's independent and she doesn't want to be a burden on anybody. But she also knows that things may happen that will require immediate help. So she checks in and she makes some friends, and they have some cool stuff going on with different characters in the book. But people start dying, and Rose puts on her Agatha Christie hat and starts to figure out perhaps that these things are not, they all seem to be innocuous. People in a retirement home die for health reasons, falls and heart troubles and such as that, and it's all being swept under the rug, and she feels like there's somebody killing people, and it's also being covered up. So her and some of her friends have to solve the mystery, are they murders? Or is it just happenstance that seems to be happening more than it usually does? And man, I love the characters in this book. It is a slasher. The reader knows pretty early on what's happening. Nobody else does. So we get a little bit of insight. While they're trying to piece it together, we're knowing what's happening, but we don't know who's doing what. And that's what's really cool. So we're also trying to solve the riddle, even though we know a little bit more than they do. If I can be any more vague, I'll try. But a fantastic book, and one, I don't want to spoil anything, but this is the kind of book that I feel like screams for a series. I mean, I read series that are built on thinner characters than this right here has for us. And I know series are treacherous for authors. I once read about one of my favorite series of all time, the Repairman Jack series by F. Paul Wilson. And F. Paul Wilson wrote a book called The Tomb, where he created this character that everybody loved, and the publisher wanted to turn it into a series, and F. Paul Wilson didn't. He refused for like 14 or 15 years to do it, because he said, I don't want to be tied down to having to write a Repairman Jack book every year on a deadline for 10, 15 years. And he's putting his career, his love for writing, all that stuff into his decision. And once he finally agreed to turn it into a series 14 or 15 years later, he was writing a Repairman Jack book every year for 13 or 14 years after that. So some authors don't want to do that. They got a lot of stories they want to tell. They don't want to get pigeonholed or stuck in a series, even though people like me love series and they seem like they sell pretty good and stuff like that. But anyway, I bought this, and it's in, and this is the UK trade edition softcover from Run For It. It looks really cool. All boys and anyway, here's the back of the cover, doing this one-arm bandit style. But I love the different artwork. I've also got the trade edition hardcover coming in the mail. It just hasn't arrived yet, and I'll show that to you when I get it. But this, one of my favorite books and one of my favorite authors, and I would love to be able to read more like this, hopefully sooner rather than later. Remember when I was just talking about having another version of Philip Fracassi's Autumn Springs Retirement Home Massacre coming my way? Well, with the miracle of modern time travel, the Friendly Neighborhood Mail Lady has changed everything. So I've gone back in time to put this little section in here all by myself. The hardcover is in from Underbrush Books, and I'm worried. Hear that? That ain't good stuff, so I'll stop making that noise. But this one is supposed to come with a signed book plate. But I still intend to get the book signed by Philip Fracassi. So I'm going to pause right now, since I'm a one-hand man, open up this box, and I'll show you what the contents are. All right, I had to do some tearing because I'm a one-armed man. And inside here, we've got a book wrapped in paper, and they've got some tissue in there. But you could tell this hardcover book was still allowed to bang around inside the box, and that worries me, because corners, it don't take much for corners of books to get dinged and busted. And in this box, I've got, let's see, set that aside just in case. I've got a sticker here that says, "Let's talk about books, baby. Let's talk about books underbrush." I like stickers. And then we have a book club bookmark here for underbrush with a join the club and one of them things that you take a picture of. There's a name for it. What's it called? Anyway, you know what I'm talking about. So it makes it easy to join the QR code, makes it easy to join the club. Now let me open this up. It's supposed to come with a, let's see the nice wrapping paper. It's supposed to come with a book plate, a signed book plate with Philip Fracassi's name on it. And it does, as advertised, a signed book plate there, which I love signed book plates, and I'll keep that. But what I tend to do with books when I get the opportunity, if I can get it signed, I'll get it signed. And that's where I'm going to the JEFCON 1, hopefully getting Philip to sign this book. I'll get him to flat sign it on the correct page. And so here, the correct page will be this one right here. This, I'll have him sign it right there. And it is a Tor Publishing Group. Let's see what else. What else? It is first edition, first print. And you can see on the number line goes all the way down to 1 right there. What else? Let's take this dust jacket off and show you. It's a trade edition hardcover. It's not a fancy limited edition. So it's going to have, let's make sure, a glued binding. Paper covered boards, the hot foil stamping on the spine, nothing on the front cover. And let me stretch out this dust jacket here. The dust jacket, let's see who the dust jacket artwork was created by Jacket Art by Jeffrey Allen Love. And there you can see our dust jacket artwork. Autumn Springs Retirement Home Massacre, Philip Fracassi. Philip has become one of my very favorite authors, and I'm glad to be able to add multiple copies of this, my favorite Philip Fracassi book. So let's check out the condition. The book was in the box. You got, let's look at the corners, just the slightest overall, all in all. I think things came out all right for me. Just a slight right there also. But all in all, I'm not disappointed with what I end up with. I am disappointed in the cushioning of the box. They put some foil, some tissue paper in there, but wrapping it in bubble wrap, including some thicker paper around the ends to make sure that the ends and the corners of the book aren't banging against the box is very important. So something, paper, packing, peanuts, styrofoam, stuff, bubble wrap, stuff like that really helps. But fantastic book. And you can see here side by side the difference between the US first trade edition hardcover and the UK first trade edition softcover. The artwork, design, you can see why somebody would want to have them both. When you get them and they look exactly the same, I'm not going to buy both. But when they have variations, I like the variations. I'm not only a reader and a lover of books, but I'm also a collector of things. So I like to have collection things for my collection. I get both these signed. I've got the signed book plate, and I've got a bunch of Fracassi signed book plates. I collect them. Some of them are in the books, and some of them are in a separate envelope full of signed book plates. But that's back to our regularly scheduled program. Through the miracle of modern time travel, I can go back to the future or the past. And another package came in the mail, and Carter's working on that. This one came from Lethe Press. Lethe Press, Lethe Press. Carter said that one's cool. He gets to see it before me even. But this is from another one of those authors that I've discovered because of Paul Miller at Earthling Publications, and that's Tyler Jone. And I've done some reviews, Midas, The Night of the Long Knives, other stuff on here from Tyler Jone, a great writer. And this is his new novella called Longsight M40. And it's from Lethe Press. I'm sure I'm saying it wrong. And I'm sure you're saying it in different ways too. But looking forward to this one. When Tyler Jone comes out with something new, I'm going to jump on it. He's taught me that lesson. What I've read, I've loved. And so I'm in. I'm a fan. This cover looks so cool on this trade edition novella. And on the back cover, Longsight M40. I haven't read it. It's just out now. But it says, this moody and unforgettable coming-of-age novella from the acclaimed author Tyler Jone is set against the eerie backdrop of a traveling Halloween fair. You got me already. I'm already in. 16-year-old Clay hopes his beat-up first car will provide escape from his parents' collapsing marriage, from the bleakness of his neighborhood, and from the confusion of first love. But on a misty November night, he and his friends sneak into the Fright Fair, a grimy retro horror carnival packed with animatronic ghouls and flickering lights in a forgotten maintenance tent. They discover an antique fortune-telling machine, an uncanny relic that should be broken but speaks with chilling clarity. What begins as a joke quickly turns ominous as the machine reveals secrets and warnings that strike too close to home. As tensions rise and emotions spiral, Clay is forced to confront his darkest impulses. Within 4 days, everything will change, and not everyone will make it out. This novella asks, what do we risk when we dare to see the future? So I'm looking forward to reading M40, or Longsight M40. Everything I've read from Tyler Jone has been fantastic. And so, like I said, he writes something, I'm in. So I ordered it directly from Lethe Press. And separately, I can't remember what the deal was, but if you pre-ordered it from them, you would get a signed book plate. So separately in an envelope from Steve Berman from Lethe Press, I got this cool looking signed book plate. It says Longsight M40 on it, some lightning in the background, and a beautiful Tyler Jone signature and a silver paint pen. And while I do now have a book plate, I intend to get the book signed, and then I'll just keep the book plate in the book. So it'll be a double whammy. But signed is always better, and when you can't always do it. Flat signed is better than book plate, but I love book plates because that might be the only way I can get books signed half the time. I've got authors that I can't go to. They're not doing signings. They're not signing books through publishers. They're in other countries. One reason or another, I can get book plates from them, and it allows me different ways to get signed books. So I do love signed book plates, and I take every advantage that I can when I get the opportunity. And then I did mention Kealan Patrick Burke was going to be there, and I've got some stuff piled up already to take for all of these authors to get signed. This is just some of the stuff that's come in the mail. On Amazon, when I saw his name on there, I went on Amazon and said, hey, there's a couple of Kealan Patrick Burke books I need to get. And so I ordered this one here, Jack and Jill. And I ordered another one. I'll show you that one in a minute. And so Jack and Jill is one that I haven't read. It's a novella length book. This one comes, who's the publisher on here? It might be self-published because I don't see anything on the spine, and I'm one-armed. So I got it on Amazon, and let's see what it says about it right here. When they were kids, Jillian and John used to visit the local cemetery every Sunday after church. It was a curious place for children to frequent, but they had their reasons. The main attraction was a lofty hill that separated the cemetery from the elementary school. And the act of tumbling down it like Jack and Jill was a ritualistic escape from the abuse they were suffering at their father's hands. It was an escape that lasted only until John's tragic death. Now, Jillian is all grown up, married with 2 children. She has managed over the years to force the trauma of her nightmarish childhood into the darkest recesses of her mind. But lately there are dreams, and in them Jillian sees or Gillian, Gillian, however you say that, sees impossibly vivid reenactments of the horrors she endured as a child. Nightly she sees John die all over again, only not in the way she remembers. And something else is in those dreams, stalking her, a terrible figure with wire hanger hands and a plastic bag wrapped around his rotten face, a monster whose reach starts to extend beyond the boundaries of sleep into the waking world, threatening everything Gillian holds dear, a monster she once called Daddy. But there's Jack and Jill. Looking forward to getting that one read. Looking forward to getting it signed. And then one more I want to show you I got from Kealan Patrick Burke. This is a new novella, a prequel to Ken, and it is called Cottonmouth, although it's got what looks like a rattlesnake on the cover of the book. That's all right. It still looks cool. Kealan Patrick Burke, so I'm thinking that would be a self-published, and it's not damaged. It's just part of the imagery on the front. Looks really cool. And this one available for the first time in paperback and digital. Cottonmouth is a prequel to Ken. I think it was originally published in the Suntup edition, special edition that they did for Ken, and it was included in that volume. But now it's a standalone. Set in the aftermath of the Great Depression in Tennessee, a time of religious fervor and charlatanism, of thieves, murderers, and moonshiners. Here you'll meet Horseshoe Collins, a traveler on a vengeful search for the father who abandoned him, Billy Ray, a snake-handling Pentecostal preacher bringing the promise of salvation to rural communities paralyzed by fear of the devil, and John Merrill, a child grieving the loss of his beloved father and tormented by his mother's wrath. With the threat of a Second World War looming in the horizon, destiny will bring these three people together and set innocent young Jonah on the path to his eventual fate and a new name, Papa in Gray, the patriarch of the dreaded Merrill family whose horrific exploits were first introduced to the world in Ken. The writing is flawless and the story is brutal and mesmerizing, well worth a read. So that is Cottonmouth. And that is Kealan Patrick Burke. And looking forward to, with great fervor, JEFCON 1. And JEFCON 1, if it's like DEFCON 1, DEFCON is the worst one. I always thought DEFCON 5 was the worst one. There was a movie on the video stores at Mr. Video back in 1985, I think, called DEFCON 5. And I always thought, oh, that's bad. But JEFCON 1 might be the worst one. Anyway, with that being said, I can think of no more lies to tell, so thank you for your time. I do truly appreciate it, and say la vie, baby. Thanks, Carter.
No problem.
Doo-doo.